Good morning. Everyone life will always bring people who drain our energy, spread negativity, or try to control us with their words. We cannot always choose who we meet, but we can choose how we respond. The first step is to clear your mind. When someone tries to upset you, pause. Breathe. Notice your thoughts. Ask yourself, does this matter? Will it matter tomorrow or next week? Most of the time, the answer is no. Letting go of anger and irritation frees your mind and protects your peace. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or behaves in a way that seems unfair, the natural reaction is often immediate. Your body tightens, your heart beats faster, and your mind races with thoughts of anger, frustration, or defensiveness. This is how humans are wired, and it can feel difficult to stop. Yet, in these moments, the most powerful action you can take is simple. Clear your mind before reacting. Clearing your mind is not ignoring what is happening or pretending it does not matter. It is not suppressing your feelings. Rather, it is creating a space between what happens outside of you and how you respond inside yourself. In that space, you regain control. In that space, you find your strength. The first step to clearing your mind is noticing the reaction itself. Most people are carried away by emotions without realizing it. You might feel the irritation rising in your chest, the tension in your jaw, or the heat in your face, and instantly act without thinking. But if you pause even for a single breath, you can watch these feelings as they arise instead of being ruled by them. This observation is quiet but powerful. It allows you to recognize that your initial reaction is only a thought, not a command you must follow. Thoughts are temporary, and emotions are temporary. They do not define you, nor do they control the course of your life. Next, take a deliberate breath. Breathing slowly and deeply does more than calm your body. It signals to your mind that action can wait. When the mind is calm, you see situations more clearly. A harsh word is not an attack unless you let it become one in your mind. A rude action is not an insult, unless you accept it as one. Clearing your mind means separating your thoughts from the external chaos, letting them settle like sediment in a glass of water, so the water becomes clear again. In that clarity, the right choices reveal themselves naturally, rather than being hidden behind the cloud of immediate emotion. Clearing your mind also requires practice and detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference or coldness. It means understanding that other people's actions are theirs, not yours. Their words, their anger, their attempts to provoke you are reflections of them, not reflections of your value or your character. When you pause and clear your mind, you remind yourself that you are responsible only for your own actions and responses. You do not need to match every insult, defend every opinion, or argue every point. The less reactive you become, the more influence you actually hold over your own life. Another important aspect of clearing your mind is focusing on the present moment. The mind often spins with thoughts about the past or worries about the future, which only intensify emotional reactions. By anchoring yourself in the present, you notice what is real and what is imagined. The words someone just said may feel like a threat, but they exist only in the present. Tomorrow is not here, and the past is gone. When you clear your mind and remain in the present, you act from reason rather than instinct. Your decisions are deliberate and measured, rather than impulsive. Finally, clearing your mind creates space for understanding. Once the cloud of immediate emotion lifts, you can see the situation more clearly, recognize the intentions of others, and even discover the lesson hidden in the challenge. The clearer your mind, the less likely you are to be caught in unnecessary conflict. You become unshakable not because the world has changed, but because your inner state has become steady, calm, and resilient. When faced with negativity, whether it comes from someone else's words, actions, or even the circumstances around you, the first question to ask yourself is simple: does this truly matter? Most of the time, people react immediately to every insult, criticism, or small inconvenience as if the world depends on their response. Yet, when we pause and examine the situation, we often realize that the negative force is fleeting and insignificant in the larger scope of life. Asking if negativity truly matters is not ignoring reality, nor is it pretending that harm does not exist. It is a way to separate what is urgent and important from what is trivial, and in that separation lies the power to remain calm and unshaken. Negativity only has power when we give it attention. Words spoken in anger, judgment passed unfairly, or actions intended to provoke can only control us if we believe they define our worth or dictate our behavior. By asking whether negativity truly matters, we challenge the assumption that external events should disturb our inner peace. We remind ourselves that the value of our own thoughts, the strength of our mind, and the steadiness of our character are far more significant than the passing noise of criticism or conflict. Most things that provoke anger or fear are small in comparison to the vastness of life, and yet they can occupy our minds if we do not question their relevance. This question also encourages perspective. Often, what feels like a major attack in the moment is tiny when viewed through the lens of time. A careless remark today may be forgotten tomorrow. A moment of frustration may vanish in a week. Negativity rarely has the permanence we imagine it does. By asking yourself whether it truly matters, you step back from the immediate reaction and allow your mind to see the bigger picture. This perspective does not diminish your intelligence or your emotions, it strengthens them. It trains you to prioritize what deserves your energy and to let go of what does not. Another important effect of asking this question is that it reduces emotional waste. When we react strongly to every negative stimulus, we drain our energy on things that have no lasting impact. Anger, resentment, and frustration consume the mind and heart, leaving little room for focus, creativity, or calm reflection. But when we stop and ask whether negativity truly matters, we conserve energy and protect our well-being. We choose to invest our thoughts and emotions where they have purpose and value, rather than scattering them on things that do not influence our lives in meaningful ways. The question also sharpens judgment. Not every negative comment requires a response, not every conflict demands engagement, and not every problem is worth our attention. By questioning the importance of negativity, we begin to respond selectively, not impulsively. We develop the ability to distinguish between what is harmful and what is irrelevant, what deserves action and what deserves indifference. This selective response is not weakness or avoidance. It is wisdom in action. Finally, asking if negativity truly matters fosters resilience. Life is inevitably filled with people and situations that will test patience and composure. By training the mind to weigh the significance of negativity before reacting, you create a habit of stability. Your mind becomes a safe space that is not easily infiltrated by anger or fear. You gain clarity, focus, and strength, and your life becomes less about reacting to every disturbance, and more about moving steadily toward your purpose. Life is filled with circumstances and people we cannot control. Other people's opinions, their moods, their decisions, and their actions are outside our power. We may wish things were different. We may feel frustration or anger when they behave in ways we do not like, but none of this changes the reality that control is limited. True strength lies in recognizing where your power exists, and it always exists within your own mind, your own choices, and your own actions. Focusing on what you can control allows you to act with clarity, avoid unnecessary suffering, and live a life guided by reason rather than by the chaos around you. When someone behaves in a hurtful or provocative way, it is natural to want to respond in kind, to argue, to defend, or to try to force them to see your point of view. But these efforts often fail because you are attempting to control what is inherently uncontrollable. Trying to shape someone else's mind or behavior is like trying to direct the wind with your hands. The wind will blow as it will. The only thing you can shape is your own response to it. The moment you accept this, a great weight is lifted from your shoulders, and the mind becomes calm. You can act wisely rather than react impulsively. Focusing on what you can control begins with awareness. Notice when you are being pulled toward frustration by someone else's words or actions. Recognize that the disturbance comes not from the outside itself, but from the meaning you assign to it. You cannot change the other person, but you can change your thoughts about them. You can choose patience instead of anger, understanding instead of judgment, and silence instead of argument. Each of these choices is fully within your power, and each preserves your peace. This focus also encourages responsibility. When we blame others for our feelings or circumstances, we give away our power. The world may not always act as we wish, but your mind and your character remain yours to govern. By focusing on your actions, you reclaim that power. You decide whether to respond with composure or to react with impulsiveness. You decide whether to rise above negativity or allow it to disturb your calm. You decide whether to move toward your goals or be distracted by what others do. Nothing external can force you to act against reason unless you allow it to. Focusing on what you can control also develops clarity. In every situation, there are countless forces at play, many of which are irrelevant to your purpose or peace. When you concentrate on your own actions, you simplify the chaos. You become more strategic, more effective, and more grounded. You begin to recognize which choices are meaningful and which are distractions. Your mind becomes like a calm lake, reflecting reality clearly instead of being stirred into confusion by every ripple caused by others. Furthermore, understanding control fosters resilience. Challenges and conflicts are inevitable. People will act unpredictably, situations will turn against you, and events beyond your influence will occur. If your focus remains on controlling others or circumstances, frustration is constant. But when your energy is devoted to what you can control, each difficulty becomes an opportunity to exercise patience, wisdom, and discipline. You face the world with confidence, knowing that while you cannot change everything, you can always choose your response. By concentrating on your own actions, you also set an example without force. Calmness, reason, and measured behavior influence others far more than arguments or anger. You cannot control their choices, but your own conduct may inspire reflection, restraint, or understanding. Control of self becomes not only a shield against chaos, but also a quiet form of power that changes the environment indirectly, without confrontation or struggle. When faced with conflict, negativity, or difficult people, the first instinct is often to speak. We feel the urge to defend ourselves, to explain, to correct, or to argue. But in many situations, speaking less is far more powerful than speaking more. By observing more than we speak, we gain clarity, preserve our calm, and outsmart those who seek to provoke us. Speaking less is not silence out of fear, it is silence born of control. It allows the mind to think clearly, to understand fully, and to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Observing more means paying attention to what is happening without immediately imposing your own thoughts. When someone speaks sharply, acts unfairly, or tries to push you into a reaction, notice not only their words but the patterns behind them. Observe their tone, body language, and behavior. Observe your own response, the tension rising in your chest, the thoughts racing through your mind, the desire to strike back. This active observation separates your mind from automatic reaction. It creates space to act wisely. In that space, you can choose silence, patience, or measured words rather than surrendering to instinctive anger. When you speak less, you also prevent unnecessary conflict. Words can inflame, escalate, or mislead. A rushed response often reveals more than we intend or gives power to someone else's negativity. By speaking less, you protect yourself from the consequences of hasty words, from regrets, and from giving others leverage over your peace. Observing more allows you to weigh each moment carefully. You begin to see which words are necessary and which are distractions. You learn that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Observing more also strengthens understanding. When you watch instead of reacting, you begin to notice the intentions, weaknesses, or frustrations behind someone's actions. This understanding is not an excuse for harmful behavior, but a tool for navigating it. You learn which battles are worth engaging and which are not. You notice the emotions driving the situation, including your own, and can act from reason rather than instinct. This clarity transforms moments of tension into opportunities for learning and growth. Speaking less gives you control over your energy. Every word you say consumes mental and emotional power. Every argument, every explanation, every defensive statement drains focus and peace. When you speak sparingly, your energy is preserved. It is focused on what truly matters, your actions, your calm, your purpose. You stop scattering your attention on noise that has no lasting value. You conserve strength to face real challenges, not imagined ones. Observation without reaction also demonstrates strength. When others seek to provoke, they test patience, wisdom, and composure. By observing quietly and speaking little, you show that their attempts cannot disturb you. Your calm presence is more powerful than any argument or rebuttal. It signals control and self-mastery, which cannot be matched by anger or loud words. Those who thrive on chaos often retreat when faced with steady observation and measured silence. Speaking less also allows time for reflection. Words spoken in the heat of emotion are rarely wise. By pausing and observing, you create a buffer that encourages reflection. You can consider what is true, what is useful, and what is necessary before acting. You respond with intention, not reaction, which is the foundation of wisdom. Finally, observing more strengthens relationships and perception. When you watch carefully, you see patterns, motivations, and opportunities that others miss. You notice what truly matters and what does not. By speaking less, you amplify the impact of the words you do choose. Each word carries weight because it is chosen with care, rather than thrown impulsively into the chaos of the moment. When faced with provocation, criticism, or toxic behavior, many people feel compelled to respond immediately. They speak to defend themselves, to correct perceived wrongs, or to fight back. Yet often the most powerful tool is silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a shield. It allows you to maintain control, protect your peace, and observe the situation with clarity. It communicates strength without aggression, confidence without confrontation, and wisdom without boasting. Choosing silence over reaction transforms moments of potential conflict into opportunities for calm and strategy. Silence gives you the space to think. When someone attempts to provoke you, your mind may flood with thoughts, anger, judgment, or a desire to retaliate. Speaking in the heat of these emotions rarely produces clarity or understanding. It often escalates the situation and draws you further into negativity. By remaining silent, you allow the storm of emotion to settle. Your mind gains perspective. You see the situation more clearly, recognize what is essential, and understand what deserves attention and what does not. Silence is a form of control over both your mind and your actions. Choosing silence also prevents unnecessary conflict. Words have power, but they also carry risk. Responding hastily can inflame a situation, create misunderstandings, or give others influence over your mood and decisions. Silence protects you from these risks. It prevents you from giving energy to negativity, from becoming entangled in disputes that have no value, and from making choices that may later be regretted. In this way, silence becomes a form of strategy. It is not passive, but active restraint, allowing you to conserve strength and respond only when action is truly necessary. Silence communicates more than words often can. When someone expects a reaction, their attempts to provoke you can be met with calm stillness. This stillness signals control, confidence, and self-possession. It demonstrates that you are not easily shaken, that their words or actions hold no power over your inner state. In this way, silence can act as a form of invisible influence. Without a single spoken word, you shape the dynamics of the interaction and assert authority over your own peace. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting composure and steadiness back to those who seek to disturb it. Silence also strengthens observation. When you do not rush to respond, you can notice details that would otherwise be missed. You can understand the intentions, emotions, and patterns of the person before you. You notice the rhythm of the conversation, the tension in the room, and the subtle cues that guide the best course of action. Through silence, you collect information and act with intelligence rather than impulse. Speaking less ensures that your words, when finally spoken, carry weight and purpose. Moreover, silence protects your emotional energy. Every response, especially one fueled by anger or frustration, consumes focus and peace. Silence conserves both. It allows your energy to be directed toward meaningful goals, productive actions, and personal growth. By refusing to expend energy on unnecessary reactions, you maintain a steady and resilient mind. You create a mental fortress that cannot be breached by trivial insults or attempts at manipulation. Silence also fosters patience. In waiting before speaking, you learn to tolerate tension without acting rashly. This patience cultivates inner strength and resilience. You begin to recognize that not every situation demands a response, that the world continues regardless of your participation in every argument, and that restraint often produces better outcomes than impulsive engagement. Over time, silence becomes a habit of self-mastery rather than mere avoidance, and the power it grants is subtle yet profound. Finally, silence encourages reflection and wisdom. It allows you to weigh the value of words before they are spoken, to consider consequences, and to act with reason. It creates a buffer between provocation and reaction, giving you the freedom to respond deliberately rather than being carried away by emotion. In this way, silence is not emptiness, it is an active, deliberate, and powerful choice that protects your mind, your peace, and your integrity. When people act with negativity, aggression, or manipulation, it is natural to feel tension, frustration, or fear. Their words and actions may seem threatening or upsetting, and the instinct is often to respond with equal energy: anger, defensiveness, or impatience. Yet, one of the most effective tools against such influence is simple: calmness. Calmness is not passivity or indifference. It is an active, deliberate state of mind that protects your energy, strengthens your decisions, and prevents others from controlling your emotions. Calmness is a shield because it creates a space in which negativity cannot take hold, and in that space you retain power over yourself. Calmness begins with awareness. When someone seeks to provoke you, notice the immediate reaction within yourself. Feel the tension in your body, the rush of thoughts, the desire to lash out. Recognize that these feelings are natural, but do not require action. By observing them without acting on them immediately, you step back from the emotional pull of the situation. This awareness is the foundation of calmness, and it allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. The calmer you remain, the less influence the other person has over your inner state. Calmness also acts as a filter. When someone speaks harshly or behaves aggressively, their words may be full of intent to manipulate, upset, or provoke. If you respond in haste or emotion, their negative energy enters your mind and spreads, controlling your thoughts and behavior. But if you remain calm, you create a barrier. The negativity cannot penetrate. It bounces off the steadiness of your mind, leaving you untouched while the other person's attempt to influence you loses power. Calmness transforms their energy from a weapon into something harmless, because it meets no resistance, no reaction, and no opportunity to gain control. Another effect of calmness is clarity. When the mind is turbulent, it becomes difficult to see what is true, necessary, or important. Emotional storms cloud judgment and obscure reason. Calmness clears the mental waters, allowing you to observe reality as it is rather than as it feels in the moment. In this clarity, you can decide which actions are wise, which words are necessary, and which challenges are worth attention. You are able to act strategically instead of being drawn into unnecessary conflicts that drain your energy and weaken your focus. Calmness also inspires respect and influence. People who attempt to provoke often expect a response, but when met with composure, their attempts lose effect. A calm demeanor communicates strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance, and self-control without force. It sends a message that you are not easily shaken, that your inner peace is non-negotiable, and that attempts to manipulate or disturb you will fail. In this way, calmness is both a shield and a quiet form of authority, shaping the dynamics of interactions without confrontation. Furthermore, calmness is contagious. When you maintain composure in the face of chaos, it can influence those around you. Others may mirror your steadiness, or reconsider their own aggressive behavior when faced with someone who remains unshaken. Calmness does not dominate or suppress, but it creates an environment in which reason and patience can flourish. It protects relationships, diffuses tension, and transforms conflict into opportunity for understanding rather than destruction. Calmness also strengthens resilience over time. Each time you respond to provocation with steadiness, you build a habit of self-mastery. You learn that external chaos does not dictate internal peace, and that control over your emotions is a skill that grows with practice. Over time, calmness becomes natural, automatic, and powerful. It is not a temporary shield, but a constant presence that guards against negativity in all forms, allowing you to navigate life with confidence, clarity, and stability. Finally, calmness protects your energy, mind, and purpose. By remaining steady, you conserve strength for meaningful action, rather than wasting it on reaction. You act from reason, not instinct. You maintain control over your life, your focus, and your inner peace, turning calmness into the most effective shield against toxic influence. Inner peace is not something that happens by chance. It is cultivated, practiced, and protect it every day. Life is full of challenges, people who test patience and circumstances that can disturb the mind. Without deliberate effort, the mind is pulled in every direction by anger, fear, or distraction. To remain strong, resilient, and calm, inner peace must become a daily habit, a skill that is sharpened through consistent attention. Cultivating inner peace is not about avoiding difficulties, but about building a foundation that allows difficulties to pass without shaking the mind. The first step in cultivating inner peace is awareness. Notice the moments when your mind is disturbed, when impatience rises, or when anger or anxiety begins to creep in. Recognize that these feelings are natural but do not need to control your behavior. Awareness is the doorway to choice. By noticing the stirrings of the mind, you create an opportunity to act intentionally, rather than reacting automatically to every irritation or provocation. When awareness becomes a daily habit, it strengthens the mind and prevents negativity from taking root. Daily reflection is another essential practice. Set aside time each day to examine your thoughts, actions, and intentions. Consider what disturbed you and why. Ask yourself whether external events truly deserve your energy. Reflect on moments when calmness and restraint guided your actions and moments when impulsiveness caused trouble. This reflection is not criticism but understanding. It trains the mind to distinguish what matters from what does not, and it reinforces the habit of responding with reason and clarity. Silence and stillness are powerful tools for inner peace. Taking quiet moments to breathe, meditate, or simply be present allows the mind to reset and gather strength. These moments may be brief, but they create a strong foundation over time. They help prevent minor irritations from growing into significant stress. They reinforce the idea that peace is not something dependent on external conditions but something built from within. By practicing stillness regularly, the mind becomes resilient, calm, and steady. Gratitude is another way to cultivate peace. Daily awareness of what is good in life, health, relationships, opportunity, or simple moments of beauty shifts focus from what is lacking or frustrating to what is stable and positive. Gratitude reminds the mind of abundance rather than scarcity. It creates a buffer against negativity and strengthens contentment, which is the essence of inner peace. Small daily reminders of what is truly valuable make the mind less vulnerable to external disturbances. Consistency is key. Inner peace is not built in a single moment or during occasional reflection. It grows from repeated practice. Small actions, pausing before reacting, breathing deeply during tension, noticing thoughts without judgment, reflecting each day on your behavior compound over time. These daily practices form habits that become automatic, creating a mind that naturally resists negativity, remains steady in chaos, and acts with clarity and reason. Physical care also supports inner peace. The mind and body are connected, and when the body is tired, hungry, or stressed, the mind becomes more easily disturbed. Simple habits such as sufficient rest, mindful eating, movement, and time in nature strengthen both body and mind. By maintaining the body, you create a foundation for a peaceful mind, ensuring that energy is available for calm thinking rather than reactive emotion. Finally, cultivating inner peace requires patience. Progress is gradual. The mind will not become unshakable overnight, and moments of disturbance will still arise. What matters is the consistent effort to return to calmness, reflection, and clarity. Each day of practice builds strength. Each moment of restraint reinforces habit. Each reflection teaches wisdom. Over time, inner peace becomes a natural state, a foundation that allows life's challenge to pass without unnecessary disturbance, providing a steady center from which all actions can flow wisely and deliberately. Many people believe that strength is shown through loud words, aggressive behavior, or winning arguments. They think that standing up to others, fighting back, or proving themselves is the mark of power. Yet true strength does not lie in confrontation or in trying to dominate others. It lies in self-control, the ability to govern your own mind, emotions, and actions even when provoked or challenged. Self-control allows you to act with wisdom, maintain inner peace, and avoid unnecessary conflict. While confrontation often leads to regret, exhaustion, or escalation, strength measured by self-control is lasting, while strength shown through confrontation is fleeting. Self-control begins with awareness of your impulses. When someone speaks harshly, criticizes, or tries to provoke you, notice the immediate reactions in your mind and body. The desire to respond, to strike back, or to defend yourself is natural, but these impulses are not commands you must follow. Observing them without acting on them creates a pause, a space in which choice exists. Strength grows in that pause because it allows reason to guide action rather than raw emotion. Each time you resist the urge to react impulsively, you reinforce your power over yourself. Confrontation often arises from a need to prove oneself, to defend pride, or to gain approval. Yet these desires are external and unstable. By giving in to them, you surrender control of your mind to the opinions, actions, and provocations of others. Self-control, on the other hand, is internal. It is the mastery of your own emotions and decisions. It is a power that cannot be taken from you, because it resides entirely within your mind. When you act with self-control, you are independent of external circumstances, untouched by chaos, and able to navigate challenges with clarity. Practicing self-control also strengthens patience. Confrontation demands immediate reaction and often escalates situations unnecessarily. Self-control allows you to wait, to observe, and to respond only when action is truly required. This patience is a sign of strength because it demonstrates mastery over impulses rather than submission to them. It allows you to conserve energy, think strategically, and act with precision, instead of being drawn into reactive conflict that serves no long-term purpose. Another aspect of self-control is emotional regulation. Strength is not shown by loud anger, frustration, or bitterness, but by the ability to remain composed even in difficult circumstances. When others attempt to provoke or manipulate, those who rely on confrontation are pulled into their game. Those who rely on self-control remain steady, unaffected by the chaos around them. This calmness communicates strength more powerfully than any argument or act of aggression. It creates an invisible shield that protects the mind and heart from unnecessary disturbance. Self-control also allows better decision-making. Confrontation is often guided by emotion, ego, or impulse, leading to poor choices, conflicts, and regrets. By maintaining control over your own reactions, you act from reason, strategy, and principle. You can choose whether a situation deserves attention, what words should be spoken, or whether silence is the better response. Each choice guided by self-control reflects wisdom and long-term strength, rather than short-term victory. In addition, self-control shapes character. Strength built through confrontation is temporary, often dependent on the reactions of others. Strength built through self-control is lasting because it is rooted in habit, discipline, and the consistent exercise of reason. Each moment of restraint builds integrity, steadiness, and resilience, forming a character that others may respect and rely upon, and that protects you from the unpredictability of life. Finally, self-control allows life to be guided by purpose rather than chaos. When you act through confrontation, energy is scattered, focus is lost, and the mind is drawn into endless conflict. When you act through self-control, energy is concentrated, attention is preserved, and actions are deliberate. Your mind and life are directed toward meaningful goals rather than temporary victories. This is the essence of true strength, a power that grows silently within, immune to external disturbances, and capable of facing all challenges with calm, steady confidence.